So if it hasn't been made abundantly clear, from the uploads I've made recently to some of the older uploads I've made throughout this channel's history, I am a big fan of Indiana Jones. I collect the gear, I collect the props, the figures, I cosplay as him. I am a proud member of the Colorado and California Jones cosplay groups, the latter of which I'm actually a co-founder and current admin of, something I take great pride in. I've made a lot of great friends through the Indiana Jones community, and it's just something that my love of grows bigger and bigger with almost every single day. And what's funny is I can't remember my inciting incident. Almost every indie fan you can talk to will tell you the story of how they were introduced to the Man in the Hat, to Indiana Jones. But I can't. I cannot remember my inciting incident with Dr. Jones. All I remember is that his image, his silhouette, his call to adventure has always been in the back of my mind, and something, as I said before, I have always loved. One of the biggest items of Dr. Jones's gear that I collect, and is very apparent from everything in the background and on my head, is the hat, the fedora. I adore fedoras, and I've loved them ever since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I used to watch Turner Classic Movies, and of course, with those films, you have the traditional archetype of the men of that time, dressed in fine three-piece suits with absolutely stunning fur felt fedoras adorning their heads. I collect a lot of hats, both modern and vintage, not just indie. But because of that, learning that there was a hero who rocked that kind of apparel, and rocked it well, it was kind of easy to fall in love with him from the start, and much, much easier to fall in love with the headgear. I want to welcome you all to the first episode of What It Means to Me, a series in which I will delve into the things I collect, why I collect them, and of course, as the title states, what they mean to me. And today's first episode is going to talk about the titular Indiana Jones fedora. I'm going to go in order of each fedora that I own, starting with this. So this is the first Indiana Jones fedora I ever owned. It is a Dorfman Pacific Indiana Jones fedora hat from Disney. My mom picked this up for me all the way back in, I want to say 2005? 2006? And from that point forward, this rarely left my head. It was one of my favorite items to take to school, on trips, basically anywhere. This beat up old boy was always on my head. And when I really started to get into Indiana Jones cosplay, of course, this was the hat I used. But I realized pretty quickly, even when I was younger, that this wasn't wholly accurate. And I was always reaching, hoping to find the perfect hat. But something happened in 2011. I stopped wearing this, and I stopped cosplaying indie. I don't know why it happened, I just did. Something was lost. And for a long while, I didn't think about indie. I only dressed up as him one other time in 2013 for a drama costume party at my high school. And then that was, again, the last time I ever did it. Fast forward to late 2014, early 2015, I rekindled my love of Indiana Jones by watching the truck chase on YouTube. And that spark was rekindled, and I wanted to start collecting again, and I wanted to start dressing up in the gear. I wanted to start cosplaying again. But moreover, I wanted my cosplay to be more accurate. I realized that this, as fond of memories as I have with it, was not going to do me the authenticity that I wanted. Then I moved on to this. This beat up old boy, more beat up than the Dorfman, is my father's vintage Bowman Hat Company Lost Ark in a really nice fawny tan. This was given to me by my dad in 2008, and I kind of threw it in my closet because I was like, I've already got an Indiana Jones hat, and this one just isn't going to do me what I need. Well, once I picked it out of my closet and I actually started to examine it, I realized, no, this will do me good. It had a very loose pinch, almost, I want to say, Temple of Doom style pinch. But I wanted a Raiders because I was just obsessed with Raiders gear, like most Indiana Jones fans are. So, with some steaming methods I learned off the interwebs, I steamed this as best as possible to a Raiders configuration. It's not perfect because the crown is too tapered, it has a teardrop shape, and it's just too short. But it was my Raiders hat for the longest time, and much like the Dorfman, it was a rare sight to see me without this on. And I rocked this for a long while with my gear. I was happy with this. But like most gearheads, I wanted something more. I wanted the next best thing. I wanted to upgrade to that new piece that was more accurate and would make me feel closer to one of my childhood heroes. And that's when I found at Vintage Fedoras. So this is my Vintage Fedoras Junior model in a Raiders of the Lost Ark bash. This hat is how a lot of my friends in the Indiana Jones community say they were introduced to me and how they knew of me, because of a video I made all the way back in 2015 talking about just receiving this hat. This beautiful piece has gone so many different places with me. It's been to Chicago, it's been to Georgia, it's been almost all over California. It really is an Indiana Jones fedora, at just how much adventure it's seen. This was a birthday present to me from my father, and I cannot thank him enough for giving me what was, at the time, my first real, honest-to-God, replica Indy fedora. Now, as the years have gone on and my knowledge has widened about the hats, this isn't the most 100% accurate replica, as I once stated in 2015, but is it a damn good close enough? These junior hats, much like their successor, the Harrisons, are just such great starter fedoras for anyone in the cosplay game, whether you are a beginner or you're a veteran. These hats were just awesome because you could really take this and make it into a beater hat and everyday wear Indy, so that your really great stuff like Fedora Raiders or a Tognarelli would get so much usage, so much mileage. This was always a great alternative, and I will forever love this hat and all of the memories I got adventuring around with it. It is beaten to absolute hell. There are bare spots in the felt, like here and here, at the top crease here, big time at the bottom of the brim, where my thumb would grab it to adjust. The ribbon is sun-faded and purple, and I had to redo the crease recently because it was just a little too loose, but this hat just has so many memories and means so much to me that I just love it. Absolutely, positively love it. And I want to get it refurbished soon so it can have a couple more years of adventure before I permanently retire it to be just a very, very pretty display model. Luckily, this year, in fact, my good buddy Trent Ryan gave me a new Fedora to rock around for a little while so that this boy could get a decent and well-deserved vacation. And that hat was this bad boy, the Tognarelli. So this beautiful baby right here is my Andrea Tognarelli Last Crusade Fedora. Now, before I get into this hat, I actually made a review on this a little while ago, actually when I got this hat this year. So I'm going to leave a link in the description to that video. In fact, I am going to leave a link in the description to every video I've made on all of these hats because I have talked about them before, except the Akubra. I will get to that in just a second, but I will leave a link in the description to all of the hats I've just talked about and will talk about, like my Fedorators, so that you can see the evolution of my knowledge of the hats and where I stood on them then and where I stand on them now. So, yeah, anyway. This is my Andrea Tognarelli Last Crusade Fedora as sold to me by my buddy Trent Ryan, and ooh doggy do I love having this hat. Firstly, I am a huge sucker for Last Crusade. It's just like, so here's Raiders, and then Last Crusade's just right there at the pinnacle, at the cusp of beating Raiders as my favorite Indiana Jones film. To me, it has some of the best action. I love the fact that Sean Connery, 007, is Indy's dad. I think the dynamic between Harrison and Sean is just so perfect. Even though they're only 12 years apart in age, they play father and son just so expertly. I also like the more gothic tones in Indy's outfit, which is something I've always tried to replicate in my own gear. I love darker tones in Indy's gear, in his outfit, costume, whatever. I just think it looks fantastic, and the Last Crusade Fedora definitely is one of those hats that I knew I always needed a replica of. One, because, as I said, Last Crusade is my second favorite Indiana Jones film ever, but also because it has the same silhouette as the vintage fedoras that I grew up watching in movies on Turner Classic Movies. So it also has that kind of connection there. Reminds me of that time. And it's just such a nice looking hat. It has so much character. All the hats do. But to me, the Raiders and the Last Crusade have the best characteristics. Because the Last Crusade tries a lot to replicate the flanged brim of the Raiders, but seeing as it has a slightly shorter brim than the Raiders does, the best it can do is these really great like semi-cowboy curls on the side. But even then, I love that detail because it just makes the Last Crusade so distinctive in style. And it really tries to go back to, you know, a Raiders fashion. You know, nice brim, tall, boxy crown. Even though it has a loose pinch like a Temple of Doom, still love it. And I love this hat to death. Every hat that I see come from Andrea, especially when it's a Last Crusade hat, is chef's kiss, stamp it perfect. Andrea Tognarelli, much like Jason of Fedorators, Tomas of AD Vintage, and David Garrison, I think those guys are just the peak, pinnacle, best hat makers. They really nail a lot of the characteristics of the Indiana Jones hats, and each one that I see come from them just to me is like, oh, that's from that scene, that's from that scene, that looks exactly like that shot, and it's just, ugh. And this hat has so many characteristics of every single one of my favorite scenes from Last Crusade. This has elements of the Venice Pier, of the tank chase, of the motorcycle chase. There are times where I look at myself in the mirror and it looks like a Grail temple. This is just an awesome, awesome hat, and I love it to bits. I love the color, I love how soft the rabbit felt is, I love how pliable it is, how easy to mold it, and it just fits so snug and comfy on my head, and it went to Colorado with me this year. That was a really fun trip, was to take this hat to Colorado and wear it to the Colorado Jones mini Comic-Con that was held by Kirk Brockman. Wearing this on the flight, going all around Colorado just with this hat on, felt so damn good. And I was actually going to wear it to Wisconsin last month when I traveled there, but I got a different hat that I really felt needed to adventure once again. And that is the Akubra that's right behind me. So let's get to that. So this fantastic piece is an Akubra Federation 4 Deluxe that was given to me by my good friend Morgan Loff, who is also a co-founder and admin of the California Jones cosplay group. If anything, he's actually the founder. He was the one who, got everything started. But that's a story for a different time. We're talking about this, which was his Akubra, which he gave to me. This was his first Indiana Jones hat, and he took this to Germany with him when he was in college. So this is as true an adventure hat as it gets, because it's been to Europe, it's been to a lot of places. He was telling me that he wore this when going under Niagara Falls, and it just kept its shape because Akubras are tanks. That's the biggest thing I want to say about Akubra hats, especially with the Fed 4. These are tanks. You can literally go on an Indiana Jones-esque adventure and you will never have to worry about this thing getting beat up or tearing or whatever. You have to put this through hell to get any kind of real distressing. He had styled this in a Raiders bash, and while you can make an Akubra look like a really great Raiders, for example, like Joey Peter Green, oh man, he was the biggest reason I wanted to get an Akubra for the longest time, because of the way that he had styled it into a Raiders. Just gorgeous. I am going to link that video in the description if it's still around. I'm more than certain it is, because that is just a glorious hat, and I love listening to Joey talk about it and his process of making this look like this. Anyway, but in my personal opinion, an Akubra is more settled stylistically for a Last Crusade Crystal Skull style, because when Akubra was building these, they had a lot of input from Mark Kidder, who was the, one of the hands behind Adventure Built Hats, who made the hats for Indy 4. So a lot of his input on specs for this hat was really based off the specs that he had done for the Indy 4 hats. So that's why I feel that these make perfect Last Crusade Crystal Skull fedoras. And as I said before, these are just tanks, and when you get them pliable, because they're really nice and pliable, they're easy to shape. Just all I had to do to take this from a Raider style and turn it into a Last Crusade was literally just get a spray bottle and lightly mist the hat, and then bam, I was able to shape it no problem. I adore this hat, and I thank Morgan every day that he allowed me to have it. And I actually took this on my Wisconsin trip because I felt that this boy needed one last big adventure. I still wear him from time to time. He's very much a beater style Indiana Jones hat because, again, Akubras are tanks. You can literally punch them, and then in less than a couple seconds, ta-da! Like nothing ever happened. That's the biggest reason I love Akubras.
Indy, we have no time. If you still want the Ark, it is being loaded onto a truck for Cairo.
Truck? What truck?
So last, but certainly not least, we come to this beauty on the top of my head. The Fedorator's Cairo / truck chase hat, as made by the very talented Jason Lavelli, I believe that's how you say his last name. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Of course, Fedorators. This series is to explain why I collect these items and what they mean to me and why they mean so much to me. And this hat is the perfect exclamation point of all the things that you've seen here that came before it. While I don't remember the first time I watched Raiders, I will always remember the impact it's made on my life. Indiana Jones made me a lover of many things. He made me a lover of high adventure. He made me a lover of men's fashion, like fedoras and finely crafted leather jackets. He's made me appreciate bullwhips, because the bullwhip hobby, just bullwhips in general, are such incredible pieces of craftsmanship. But most importantly, Indiana Jones did two things for me in my life. He made me a lover and great admirer and protector of history, as well as being one of the biggest inspirations for why I am currently in the business I'm in, which is the film industry. The Indiana Jones series, or the Raiders series, or whatever you'd like to call it. Those films inspired me because of the magic, the pure movie magic that they hold, which is so hard to replicate, if at all replicate. And owning this gear, and specifically this hat, these hats, takes me back to being a child, takes me back to watching those films and just loving every moment, wanting to be a part of those adventures and make my own. This hat, this character, means so much to me because not only has Indy inspired me in so many different ways to just go out and seek adventure, both near and far in my own life, but Indiana Jones as a character has brought into my life so many friends that I have now. So many dear friends that I only dreamed about having a long, long time ago. These hats are a symbol of that love of adventure, that love of history, and that movie magic, which inspired a very young me to be in the business I'm in. And that's a type of fortune and glory everyone can appreciate. I have been Nathan Smith Finley, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I cannot wait to share with you the next episode of what it means to me. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, everybody.